Actually, you're not confident either, are you? Yunyan no longer held back with him, staring into his face, hitting the nail on the head. So you came to me, hoping I could be your advocate, didn't you? Zhang Chuan was frank. That's true. Then he added, Wanzhou and I have no connection. We never have. So, by what right do you think I could be an advocate for the Zhang family? By what right do you think he'll listen to me? Yunyan retorted. Zhang Chuan pursed his lips. After a long pause, he said, It's still the same thing. He is a member of the Zhang family. The Zhang family's blood flows in his veins. Furthermore, Grandpa wants him to acknowledge his ancestors and return to his clan. This is the old master's greatest wish. Yunyan stared at him, remaining silent for a long time. Yunyan didn't know how she left the club. From the moment she exited, her feet felt like they were treading on cotton, as if one misstep would send her plummeting from the clouds. Zhang Chuan offered to drive her, but she refused. Stepping out of the club, she didn't call a taxi immediately, feeling an unbearable tightness in her chest, as if she couldn't breathe. So she wrapped her coat tighter around herself and slowly walked forward. Outside the club was a tree-lined road. In spring it was lush and velvety green, in summer dense and verdant, and in autumn it would be paved with gold. Only in winter was the scenery lacking, with bare trees on both sides. Fortunately, there was still a hint of festive cheer, as the colorful lights strung on the trees hadn't been removed yet. It took 5 or 6 minutes for her breathing to slowly normalize. Previously, she couldn't stand the biting cold of Beishur, but now the crisp air piercing her body with each breath actually soothed her inner restlessness. The commercial vehicle slowly following behind was Zhang Chuan's. He wasn't driving his official car, but his own, which was fortunately less conspicuous. Eventually, the car pulled up in front of her. The window slowly lowered, and Zhang Chuan turned to her, saying, Get in, it's too cold outside. Yunyan stopped. No, really, I've already called a car. Zhang Chuan sighed. I've been following you since you left the club. What did you call a car? I just want to walk. Nian. Zhang Chuan's tone was resigned, yet unwavering. Get in. I still have something to tell you. Haven't we said everything that needed to be said? Yunyan looked at him calmly. Seeing this, Zhang Chuan was both annoyed and amused. Am I going to eat you? Why are you so afraid of me? If you don't get in, I'll just have to keep following you. His words and demeanor were extremely resolute, and a slight raise of his eyebrows added an obvious sense of authority. Yunyan flinched. The current Zhang Chuan was considerably more assertive than before. Zhang Chuan got out of the car, walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and waited for her to get in. Yunyan didn't want to argue with him in the street. They were already attracting a lot of attention. Once she was in the car, the man's presence enveloped her densely. It was a cold yet subtly warm scent, like the faint gleam of spring sunlight on leather. Zhang Chuan steadily held the steering wheel, looking straight ahead. Yunyan's gaze inadvertently fell on his hand. His finger bones were long, knuckles distinct, conveying a sense of control. There was a rather noticeable scar, like a knife wound, on the web of his thumb. So his line of work was quite dangerous. I admit it. Zhang Chuan, unaware she was looking at his hand, stared ahead with a profound and distant gaze. After a long moment, he spoke. I did have the intention of using you. He paused, then continued. I don't understand Wanzhou well. I was afraid of being counterproductive. Nian, I'm sorry. I know this situation is very difficult for you. Yunyan withdrew her gaze, looking ahead as the bare trees on either side quickly receded. If you wanted to understand someone, it shouldn't be difficult, should it? Whether as a Zhou's brother or as the prosecutor general, it would be an easy matter for him to thoroughly understand a person. Prosecutor Zhang, if you're unwilling to spend time on a Zhou and are only pursuing the wishes of your elders at home, then it would be better to just put on a show. In today's society, money makes the world go round. What kind of person can't be hired? Even finding someone who resembles a Zhou wouldn't be impossible. Zhang Chuan said softly, A Zhang family child is a Zhang family child. We cannot falsify that. Yunyan thought to herself, if that's the case, what has the Zhang family been doing all these years? Whether he sensed her thoughts or intended to tell her anyway, Zhang Chuan said, Actually, Grandpa visited the Yu family a few years ago. Yunyan was startled. To talk about a Zhou? Yes. Yunyan turned to look at him. When was this? When we were still studying. Grandpa said that Wanzhou was home then, recuperating from an illness, and you had returned to school. Yunyan recalled carefully and remembered. There was indeed 1 year, just before school started, when a Zhou had an appendicitis attack and didn't go abroad with her to report back to school. That year, a Zhou had an appendectomy and recuperated at home for a while before returning to school. So the Zhang family came that year. Did he see a Zhou? Zhang Chuan nodded. He did. Grandpa told me that when he first saw Wanzhou, he felt like he was looking at my father, except Wanzhou's features were softer than father's, perhaps because he took after his birth mother. Yunyan was surprised. A Zhou had never mentioned this to her. She couldn't imagine what state of Zhou would have been upon meeting his biological grandfather. But she assumed it ended badly back then. Otherwise, Zhou wouldn't have stayed with the Yu family all these years. My father said that Zhou was entrusted to us by an old friend. Unless Zhou himself agreed, father would not allow the Zhang family to take Zhou away. Zhang Chuan admitted, yes, I heard that the matter wasn't settled then. Later, Grandpa made a suggestion. At this, he turned and glanced at her. Yunyan suddenly had a premonition in that very instant. She asked, this suggestion involves me? Zhang Chuan's lips curved slightly, and a faint smile touched his eyes. You are truly clever. But Yunyan didn't smile. She felt that the Zhang family always did things unconventionally. Grandpa suggested that one Zhou acknowledge his ancestry, because it was only a matter of time. A Zhang family child must return to the Zhang family. If they were truly reluctant to part, then the two families could form a marriage alliance. Zhang Chuan paused at this point. Yunyan was suddenly alarmed. A marriage alliance between the two families? Yes, between the Zhang and Yu families, one Zhou and Yu. That way, you would still be family, Zhang Chuan said softly. This is simply, Yunyan frowned, blurting out, absurd. She suppressed her displeasure. Of course, this proposal was rejected by the Yu family, for the same reason you're thinking of, Zhang Chuan said unhurriedly. It was absurd to begin with. Wan Zhou and I are siblings, Yunyan emphasized. Not biological siblings, Zhang Chuan gently reminded her. Yunyan was about to say that they were more like siblings than even biological ones, but then she thought Zhang Chuan's words carried a hidden meaning. What are you trying to say? Zhang Chuan slowed the car. Traffic was starting to build up ahead. Rows of taillights had almost become a Red Sea, moving forward at an extremely slow pace. I remember what happened that year, he said, his gaze deep, an obscure light flickering in his eyes. When Yuan Zhou returned to school after his break, the way he looked at you was distinctly different. And it was also from that year that he stopped calling you Jess sister. Yunyan was stunned. Is that true? She recalled again. Yuan Zhou indeed stopped calling her Jia later on, especially after the Yu family's decline. Every time he addressed her, it was Yunyan starting from that year. She seemed to recall it clearly now. That year, after his break, he returned to school and spoke to her strangely for quite a while. She was sensitive and asked him what was wrong, feeling like he had something to say. Yuan Zhou told her she was overthinking. When Grandpa made the suggestion back then, Wan Zhou was right there. Reportedly, his expression was unusual, and he even seemed a bit vexed and angry. Zhang Chuan remembered clearly. That year, I still didn't know Wan Zhou's true situation and genuinely thought of him as your younger brother. But clearly, from that year on, he stopped seeing you as an older sister. Yunyan now remembered everything clearly. At the same time, she understood Zhang Chuan's implication. In fact, she had vaguely sensed it herself these past 2 years, but she had always kept their relationship on the level of siblings. Zhou sees me as his older sister now. Zhang Chuan smiled. That would be for the best. Yunyan found Zhang Chuan's tone a little strange. Then she heard him continue unhurriedly. I only hope Xiao Min can keep him tethered. Otherwise, he seized the chance to glance at her. Wan Zhou's thoughts will still circle back to you. Yunyan stared at him in astonishment. Yes, I know all about Wan Zhou's current situation. Zhang Chuan answered her unspoken question. As you just said, whether from the Zhang family's background or my professional background, it's not difficult for me to investigate someone. After a moment, he added, including your situation. Yunyan's breath caught. Me? Yes. Zhang Chuan's voice was soft and low. You're with Jiang Yunyan now, aren't you? Hearing this, her ears suddenly pricked with a sharp pang. But more than that, her heart felt as if huge waves were churning within it. And Zhang Chuan's next words left her heart with nowhere to settle. The bodyguard who used to be inseparable from you. Who would have thought he was from the Jiang family? Yin, I won't comment on Jiang Yin himself. I just want to advise you one thing. Don't get too deeply involved. Pull yourself out early. Senior Zhang, Yin said calmly, trying to suppress her turbulent emotions. Please stop at the next intersection. I have an appointment with Xiao Min. Zhang Chuan gave a bitter smile. Are you wary of me? Since you know Xiao Min and are aware of my situation, you should also know that Xiao Min and I are close friends and enjoy going out to shop and eat together when we have free time. The car slowed down, but instead of stopping, it turned into an alleyway. The alley was narrow, lined with parked cars. Zhang Chuan stopped the car. Yunyan reached for the door handle, but couldn't open it. She turned to look at Zhang Chuan. Zhang Chuan, however, showed no immediate intention of opening the door for her. He turned his body, his broad shoulders almost blocking out most of the light, enveloping Yunyan like a shadow. Yunyan felt a sense of oppression, different from Jiang Yunyan. Jiang Yunyan was like a demon from hell. The oppression he exuded carried an innate destruction. Zhang Chuan's oppression, however, stemmed from his identity. Even without his uniform, His stern brows could project an air of authority that deterred any defiance. Yun Yin's breathing tightened, and she spoke as calmly as possible. Although I'm not pleased with the Zhang family's actions, since I promised you, I will talk to Zhou, so you don't need to worry about me going back on my word. Zhang Chuan stared at her face. As he stared, he slowly leaned closer to her. Yun Yin's hand gripped the door handle, instantly tense. Zhang Chuan's face was above her forehead. If she were to lift her head even slightly, her forehead would touch his square jaw. But Zhang Chuan didn't allow her any movement. He bent slightly, lowering his head, his thin lips moving very close to her. Senior Zhang, my appointment with Xiao Min is almost here. Please open the car door, Yun Yin said, her back pressed tightly against the seat, her breathing growing more ragged. However, Zhang Chuan ignored her, not even changing his intense stare at her cheek. Hearing this, Yun Yin's heart leaped into her throat. Zhang Chuan looked down and saw her nose, delicate yet strong, adding a sculpted beauty to her originally gentle, graceful southern charm. Further down were her red lips. She wore no heavy makeup, just a light touch of red that seemed natural, her original lip color. In school, I and Jiang Wenjun often hung out together. What's wrong today? Zhang Chuan straightened slightly, ultimately preventing the recent ambiguous tension from escalating. Have we grown distant from not seeing each other for too long? You're acting just like a child. Only when he slightly distanced himself did Yun Yin secretly take a breath to adjust her emotions, softly saying, our experiences are different, and our backgrounds are different. Naturally, we can't be as thoughtless as we used to be. Zhang Chuan looked at her for a long time, then smiled faintly, a hint of bitterness in his expression. His phone rang. It was Zhang Chuan's. Seeing this, Yun Yin quickly said, I won't disturb you. I'll get off here. Don't move. Zhang Chuan's voice was low, yet full of power. The car door remained closed, and Yun Yin didn't know what he intended to do. He answered the phone right in front of her. In the quiet car, Yun Yin found it hard not to listen. She heard the person on the other end address Zhang Chuan as Prosecutor Zhang, their tone respectful. It was work-related, apparently a tricky case where a stubborn individual was making things difficult for his subordinates. Zhang Chuan's expression hardened upon hearing this. Difficult? You're paid by the state to do this job, and you're afraid of trouble? If you can't interrogate them, I'll skin you alive. Don't disgrace the procuratorate. The other party immediately explained, their attitude extremely sincere, showing Zhang Chuan held considerable authority in their eyes. Zhang Chuan said, I'm coming back now. Yun Yin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. A moment ago, she hadn't felt anything, but this call truly made her feel the oppressive weight of authority. He hadn't raised his voice when he spoke, but the calmer his tone, the more intimidating he became without anger. After Zhang Chuan finished his call, Yun Yin said, I see you're very busy, so I'll drive you home. No need, Xiao Min and Wan Zhou are quite smitten with each other right now. Does she have time to accompany you? Zhang Chuan smiled, melting the frost in his eyes. He raised a hand and gently ruffled her hair, like he was dealing with a little girl. Sit tight. This was probably the most intimate gesture between them since they met. Yun Yin couldn't quite describe the feeling. Even in the past, Zhang Chuan had never done anything like this. The car started, heading in the direction of her home. There was no need to ask how he knew her address. If someone was determined to find out about another person, how could they not? It was just being seen through so directly was truly embarrassing. Back home, Yun Yin thought it over and still called Yuan Zhou. Yuan Zhou was at the cinema. There was a new film premiering, and Xiao Min was attending the premiere today, with Yuan Zhou accompanying her. Yun Yin didn't show much emotion when she found out. It wasn't quiet on his end, so she made up a lie, saying it was nothing important. Yuan Zhou thought for a moment and told her he'd call her back after the premiere. She didn't want to tell Yuan Zhou about the Zhang family's affairs. Not at all. Even if she wasn't an adult yet, she could just dismiss the whole thing as youthful ignorance and ignore it. But she was an adult now. What good would a moment of impulsiveness do? It was clear Zhang Chuan's stance was firm, and this must have been a decision from the Zhang family, not his own. Otherwise, with his current determination, Yu Zhuanzhou's recognition into the family wouldn't have waited until now. More importantly, the Zhang family's affairs would sooner or later become known to the outside world. Although Elder Master Zhang's status wasn't as high as Elder Mrs. Zhang's, his age and experience were undeniable. At least within the Beijing elite, everyone still acknowledged him. So, once the Elder Master passed away, even if the news didn't spread widely, the Beijing elite would know. Although Yuan Zhou wasn't part of the Beijing elite, it didn't mean he didn't interact with people from that circle. It was only a matter of time before he found out. While waiting for Yu Zhuanzhou's call, Yun Yin drifted off to sleep, leaning back on the chaise longue. Whether it was the drop in temperature tonight or a psychological reason, she felt a little cold. She covered herself with a blanket, and the warmth quickly brought on drowsiness. In her student days, Yunyin had read a book, a piece of youth angst literature. In the book, there was a humble and gentle senior who preferred wearing plain white shirts. His shirts were mostly light-colored, predominantly white, always impeccably clean and bright, as if infused with sunlight. She was once obsessed with the graceful senior in the white shirt from the book, until she met Jean Chuan after going abroad for her studies. Yunyin's dream seemed to take her back to that year. It was late spring, early summer on campus, and under the large, lush, ancient trees, Jean Chuan rode a bicycle past, wearing a white shirt. Light filtering through the leaves cast dappled shadows on him, and his hair also caught the light. She stared blankly for a long time. She felt as though he was the senior who had stepped right out of that book. When the vibration of her phone woke Yunyin, a white shirt bathed in warm sunlight still seemed to flicker before her eyes. She glanced at her phone. She had slept for over an hour. It was Yu Wanzhou calling, and his first words were, "Do I need to come over?" Yunyin said no. Yu Wanzhou sounded like he was in his car. She could hear faint jazz music, the song he often played in his car. He said, "All right then, tell me the truth, or I'll come straight to you." Yunyin chuckled wryly. "If I wasn't going to tell you the truth, why would I have called you earlier?" Yu Wanzhou laughed. "Don't I know you? An hour is enough for you to change your mind several times." Yunyin thought, he really does know me. If she hadn't fallen asleep, she would definitely have spent that hour oscillating between tell and don't tell. She asked about Xiaomin. Yu Wanzhou said, "I left early and am waiting for her in the garage. She's not done yet." Yunyin understood tacitly. As a very handsome and well-built man, Yu Wanzhou had always been a hot commodity in women's eyes, both in the past and now. Others always waited for him. She had never seen him wait so eagerly for another girl. Thinking about it carefully, ever since he reunited with Xiao Min many years ago, Yu Wanzhou had been quite attentive to her. Although he called her Sister Min back then, he remembered everything Xiao Min liked and everything she said. Yunyin felt that rather than Yu Wanzhou's feelings for her changing, it was more that he was the one who least understood his own heart. "Sis." Yu Wanzhou thought the signal was lost. Yunyin emerged from her thoughts, and discussing the Zhang family's affairs again made her mood heavy and complex. Yu Wanzhou listened throughout the entire process. Or perhaps he was listening. In any case, he didn't interrupt her once when she spoke of the Zhang family. It was only midway through that he lit a cigarette, the click of the lighter sounding distinct in the quiet car. After Yunyin finished explaining the whole story, she softly said, "You have the right to know, and, of course, you also have a right to choose. If you just want to never return to the Zhang family in this life, that's fine too, as long as you're happy." Yu Wanzhou was silent for a long time on the other end. He opened the car window, took a drag from his cigarette, and exhaled a large cloud of smoke. "You know me. I really don't want any connection with the Zhang family. Blood ties are there, and I can't choose that, but I can choose not to acknowledge them in this life, just as they didn't acknowledge me back then." Yunyin was silent. She knew. Yu Wanzhou hadn't mentioned the Zhang family's affairs for so many years. He hadn't let it go. Yunyin could also feel his anger and helplessness, though she hadn't expected Yu Wanzhou's resentment to run so deep. The voice on the other end of the phone was chilling. Neither frost on the tiles nor ice in a well could match the coldness in his calm tone. "When the Yu family fell on hard times, my father never sought help from the Zhang family, and I certainly won't. No matter how difficult things are now, it's nothing to me," Yu Wanzhou said. Yunyin thought for a moment. "I heard Elder Master Zhang once visited the Yu family." Yu Wanzhou scoffed, a clear sneer. Yunyin could imagine his expression without even seeing him. She asked, puzzled, "What's wrong?" A faint premonition rose in her heart. There must be something else. "How noble is Elder Master Zhang? Someone of my background, in his eyes, is nothing but an illegitimate child, not even fit for the family tree. His desire to acknowledge me wasn't truly to acknowledge me, but out of concern for the gossip of other Zhang family elders, and also to give the legitimate Zhang family members a good reputation," Yu Wanzhou said with cold sarcasm. That year, Elder Master Zhang personally went to the Yu family. Yu Wanzhou actually felt a faint warmth in his heart when he learned of it. His disgraceful background was like a brand on him, unrecognized and unaccepted. How could he not have envied those brothers in the Zhang family? Even in an ordinary family, he would have envied them. But later, his adoptive parents from the Yu family filled that void in his heart, and he secretly thought that no matter what happened in the future, no matter the circumstances, he would take good care of his adoptive parents, and he would be a son of the Yu family for life. When Elder Master Zhang came, he felt a pang of sympathy, but he never really thought of leaving, as if to prove that someone in the Zhang family did care about him. However, even when Elder Master Zhang arrived at the Yu family, his attitude was very clear. As an illegitimate child, he could not enter the family tree. Yu Yuan then smiled, of course giving the other party enough respect, and said, "Elder Master, since Wanzhou cannot enter the family tree, why did you bother making this trip, all the way from Beishur to here? Furthermore, Wanzhou is Ji Ming's child. How can you call him an illegitimate child? What era is this? Are we still talking about the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children? Elder Master Zhan, however, had carefully made his calculations. He stated that Yuan Zhou must recognize Zhan Chuan's mother as his mother. Only then could he enter the family tree as a legitimate son. He concluded by saying, "What right does a vixen who tricked my son into betraying his family and lost his mind have to bear a child of the Zhan family?" Hearing these words, Yu Yuan's expression darkened, and he politely refused Elder Master Zhan. And so, Elder Master Zhan proposed a marriage alliance between the two families. Naturally, Yu Yuan refused again. He didn't care for it. Even if Yunyan hadn't known before that old Master Zhan had visited the Yu family, and even if she had never discussed Zhan family matters with Yuan Zhou, she understood this point based on her knowledge of him. When trouble befell the Yu family, shaking the entire business circle, the Zhan family never made an appearance or offered any support, not even a phone call to check on Yuan Zhou. So when Yuan Zhou was troubled by Zhang Xianwen, the Zhan family was not Yunyan's first choice either. Perhaps thinking of the same thing, Yuan Zhou remained silent for a long time before saying hoarsely, "If I had known, I would rather have begged the Zhan family myself than let you go." He didn't finish the rest of the sentence. Yunyan knew what he wanted to say and said softly, "This was my own choice, Zhou. It has nothing to do with you." Yuan Zhou said, "Sis, don't worry about this matter. I don't want you to overthink it either. I'll talk to Zhan Chuan." Yunyan considered for a moment. All right. After hanging up with Yuan Zhou, Yunyan found herself unable to sleep. Staring at the hazy night outside the window, Yunyan felt a subtle unease in her heart. Through the clear glass, she gazed at the distant horizon, where obscure, indistinct lights moved, blurring the boundaries between heaven and earth. It was as if a beast lurked within this chaos, biding its time to burst forth and devour everything. She was afraid that Zhan Chuan was merely a fuse. The door opened. When a man pushed the door open and entered, Yunyan, who was sitting on the living room sofa, turned her head to look. From her angle, she could see the entranceway. Jiang Yinyan's tall figure was visible at a glance. He had been on a short business trip, and now, upon returning, he came straight to her door. It had become a natural habit. The entranceway was lit by strip lights, a gentle goose-yellow hue, creating a soft and warm ambience. The lights softly cascaded onto Jiang Yinyan's hair, reflecting a subtle sheen. As he bent down to change his shoes, his brows and eyes were cast in faint shadow, highlighting the sharp angles of his entire face. Yunyan fell into a daze. If Zhou had gotten into trouble back then, and she had sought help from the Zhan family, how would things be now? She didn't know what her relationship with Zhan Chuan would be like, but she was certain of one thing. She and Jiang Yinyan would be people from two different worlds, like parallel lines that would never intersect. She wondered again, what if she had seen Jiang Yinyan under the tree shadows back then? What if the person in the white shirt that day had been Jiang Yinyan? What's wrong? Jiang Yinyan walked in, finding it odd that she was staring at him unblinkingly. Yinyan pulled herself out of her absurd thoughts and said it was nothing. Jiang Yinyan looked down at her. She was curled up in the sofa, looking up at him like a small, weak cat. Jiang Yinyan reached out and rested his arm on the sofa armrest, his tall frame leaning slightly closer. A crisp scent emanated from the man, carrying with it the chill from outside. The new year had passed. The seemingly sunny days were actually still cold at night. Even if the winter jasmines outside had bloomed, another cold snap could be deadly. She couldn't help but shiver. Jiang Yinyan looked at her with interest. Something wrong? Nothing, Yunyan quickly said, her slender fingers lightly pushing against his solid chest. You've brought all the cold air from outside in. Her voice was small and soft, making Jiang Yinyan's heart tingle. He couldn't resist giving her cheek a light pinch before standing up. Old Lu arrived when Jiang Yinyan went into the bathroom to shower. He didn't come inside, but brought several sets of clothes, all covered with protective garment bags. Just looking at the fabric of the garment bags, they were all Shangyun silk, and the embroidery on them was purely hand-stitched, indicating extreme refinement. Yinyan was puzzled. Old Lu chuckled. It seems there's some kind of gathering to attend, but I'm not clear on the specifics. Yunyan was astonished. He needs to prepare so many outfits for just one gathering? How big of a gathering must it be? Old Lu said, "These clothes were prepared for you by young Master Yin." Yunyan took a while, huh? Also, Old Lu said softly, "Young Master Yin has been working overtime during these 2 recent business trips, rushing to get back, which is quite taxing on his body. I'd have to ask you to take care of him." Yunyan was taken aback, rushing back. She suddenly remembered last time. He had returned just as abruptly, without giving any reason. Perhaps he was worried about you, Miss Yu. After saying this, Old Lu gracefully excused himself. Yunyan carried all several evening gowns to the sofa. They were incredibly heavy. While Jiang Yunyan was still in the bathroom, she squatted down and lifted a corner of Shang Yun's silk garment bag, revealing the hem of a skirt embroidered with scrolling floral petals. Oh my goodness, that one glance was enough. It wasn't that Yunyan hadn't seen nice things before, but even for the partial view of the skirt, she could tell it was ostentatiously luxurious. Is he going overboard? When Jiang Yunyan emerged from the bathroom, he immediately saw the clothes hanging perfectly neatly on a portable drying rack, standing right in the center of the living room. He smiled. Old Lu's quick, he delivered them so fast. Yunyan didn't speak, looking at him with eyes full of confusion and doubt. After showering, Jiang Yunyan looked very refreshed, his travel weariness gone. His hair wasn't fully dry, and he had casually put on a light-colored loungewear set, which actually added to his approachable, boy-next-door charm. He sat on the sofa, naturally extended an arm, and pulled her into his embrace. Take a look at these gowns and pick one. If you don't like any, we'll choose something else. Yunyan turned to look at him. Old Lu said it was for a banquet. Yes, Jiang Yunyan nodded. Yunyan was surprised. You never attend these kinds of events. It's a small, private gathering within the circle, not open to outsiders, Jiang Yunyan said softly. Within the circle? You want to go too? Of course. Jiang Yunyan smiled, as if she had asked a rather amusing question. Yunyan paused. As your assistant? Jiang Yunyan looked at her, raising an eyebrow slightly. It's not a business banquet. Why would I bring an assistant? Then why are you making me go? Jiang Yunyan said nonchalantly. As my female companion. Compared to her shock, Jiang Yunyan was completely unperturbed, giving a very reasonable explanation. Aside from you, I don't have any other women around me. If you don't accompany me, who will? Jiang Yunyan. Yunyan's heart was pounding wildly. She pushed his arm aside and turned to face him. You said it's a private gathering within the circle, right? Right. People from the Beijing circle? Of course. Yunyan was utterly speechless, seeing his confident demeanor. She said to him, word for word, a private gathering within the circle, and I'm accompanying you as your female companion. Are you crazy? She paused. Even if I accompanied you as a granddaughter of the Jiang family, it would be quite strange. A niece accompanying her uncle? Jiang Yunyan saw the serious look in her eyes and suddenly smiled. So, it's better to accompany me as my female companion. You, then, smart as you are, give me a good idea. Jiang Yunyan leaned back on the sofa, appearing languid, unsure if he was tired or just relaxed. Otherwise, should I have Xiaomin go instead of you? Yunyan nearly gasped, looking at Jiang Yunyan with amusement. Are you all right? How could you even think of Xiaomin? Don't you know she's with Ajo now? Exactly. The three women I know and have interacted with are Mora, Xiaomin, and you. Mora is definitely out. And, as you said about Xiaomin, her situation doesn't allow it. Even if she'd go to great lengths for me, she has no such obligation. Only you. He looked at her with a faint smile. And besides, you are my woman, making you the most suitable. Yunyan felt overwhelmed. No, Jiang Yunyan, think again. See who else around you can accompany you. Even Jiang Xian would be more suitable than me. He was utterly crazy. Jiang Xian? Jiang Yunyan frowned. Forget it. I can't handle her. He barely had enough time to avoid her. Yunyan was truly both annoyed and amused. She had witnessed Jiang Xian and Jiang Yunyan's dynamic firsthand. Jiang Yunyan, who feared nothing and was always ruthless, was surprisingly afraid of Jiang Xian. He saw Jiang Xian like a mouse sees a cat, a complete suppression stemming from their bloodline. She was about to say more when Jiang Yunyan reached out and gently pinched her face twice, saying with a half-smile, if you accompany me, regardless of your identity, it will make anyone who has designs on you give up their intentions. In the future, anyone who wants to mess with you will have to weigh their own standing. He patted her head. Choose the one you like. Yunyan felt a bit numb, his words from just now echoing in her ears. Yuanzhou drove Xiaomin home. After parking the car in the underground garage and turning off the engine, he didn't suggest going upstairs, nor did he say he was leaving immediately. He seemed preoccupied. Seeing this, Xiaomin wasn't in a hurry to get out either. She turned to look at him and softly asked, do you need me to stay here, or should I go upstairs? As the saying goes, even the most mature men can sometimes be like children, but this statement is equally applicable to women. In other words, sometimes acting like a child is human nature, a human privilege. No one demands that a person always maintain a mature facade without any relaxation, especially when feeling down. Xiaomin could tell Yuanzhou was preoccupied. He had spoken little on the way, seeming absent-minded. Yuanzhou leaned back in a car seat, weariness showing in his eyes and brows. He said softly, I'm fine. Xiaomin, being mature, didn't press him with questions in such a situation. She said, "Then, do you need me to leave?" Yuanzhou didn't speak, his eyes holding a deeply inscrutable expression. Xiaomin raised a hand to pat his shoulder. Just as she was about to get out, her wrist was gently held by Yuanzhou. She turned to look at him. "Stay with me. Don't go," Yuanzhou whispered. The man, usually so composed, now had a touch of grievance. Yes, Xiaomin felt most keenly that he actually felt wronged, which was rare for Yuanzhou, who had always loved to act like a little adult since childhood. Xiaomin closed the car door and sat back down. Yuanzhou didn't tell her what was bothering him, only feeling a surge of irritation with nowhere to vent. He didn't want to burden Xiaomin with these unwarranted emotions, yet at the same time, he didn't want to be alone. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. He held her quietly in his embrace, not saying a word. Xiaomin let him do so. Even without a word from him, she could feel the suppression of his mood. She wasn't sure what had happened while he was waiting for her, but she had heard about recent matters concerning the Zhang family. There was always a subtle premonition in her heart that his emotional changes were most likely related to the Zhang family. Finally, Yuanzhou lowered his head, slowly seeking her lips in the dimness. Xiaomin didn't shy away. She actively wrapped her arms around his neck, responding. So-called inner circle gatherings, whether in terms of the number of participants or the scope of their backgrounds, always emphasize exclusivity. Unlike the focus of Shanghai circle gatherings, which largely comprise business and financial figures, the Beijing circle, in addition to business, also involves politics, making its gatherings relatively more private. In the past, Yunyan had attended many business circle gatherings. At one such event, she even prepared 12 gowns, changing her attire according to different time slots. But in such settings, everyone behaved similarly, and Yunyan didn't think much of it. Although the Yu family and the Jiang family had been close before, one was a power in the south of the Yangtze River and the other in the north, so Yunyan had never attended a Beijing circle gathering. Beijing circle gatherings had extremely strict requirements for participants' backgrounds. Especially at a gathering that could invite Jiang Yinyan, the attendees were invariably top-tier powerful figures. She wouldn't need many gowns. One would suffice for the entire event. Although Jiang Yinyan offered her many options, and every gown was beautifully made. Unlike the gown she usually wore, most of the options available to her featured traditional Chinese designs, leaning towards qipao styles, but with subtle modern adaptations that made them even more understated and elegant. Seeing these gowns, Yunyan understood why even the outer covers were designed with Zhangyanshi silk. Looking at each dress, the fabric alone was as luxurious as gold, not to mention the embroidery, which was clearly crafted stitch by stitch. Every single one, Yunyan could indeed say this. Every gown was so exquisite it made one reluctant to let go. She had worn countless gowns, but only this time did she genuinely feel that a dress could truly captivate her. Jiang Yinyan, seeing she liked every single one, couldn't help but tease, "You were never this indecisive when choosing gowns before." "None of them were this beautiful," Yunyan murmured. But in reality, beauty was only one reason. She was more profoundly impressed by the intricate craftsmanship. Jiang Yinyan chuckled. "If every piece is beautiful, then keep them all. No need to agonize over it." Yunyan declined, ultimately choosing the one she liked best. She felt the dresses were like works of art, and since she wouldn't wear them often, why waste them? Jiang didn't force her, only saying, "The master artisan from this house has remarkable skill, passed down through the family. If you like, you can ask her to make some everyday clothes, ones you can wear regularly." Yunyan nodded slightly. "Okay." Jiang Yinyan saw her lips curve upwards, her eyes soft and bright. He thought, she's just a young girl after all, still so fond of beautiful clothes. Most Beijing circle gatherings chose exclusive clubs or venues. Because of the special status of the guests, preparations would begin at the venue once the date was set, covering everything from external decor to internal layout, guest rest areas to catering, and guest security to food safety. A detailed and complex series of tasks. The background of venues capable of hosting such inner circle gatherings was also extraordinary. Their owners were invariably part of the Beijing circle, effectively making each gathering a closed-loop event. As they neared the venue, Yunyan suddenly felt a bit nervous. Jiang Yinyan noticed her emotions and asked with a smile, "What's wrong?" Yunyan told him truthfully, "I'm worried I won't be able to adapt to the situation inside." The Beijing circle was too different from the Shanghai circle. In Shanghai, she felt more at ease. Jiang Yinyan smiled, holding her hand, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "You'll have to get used to the Beijing circle sooner or later. Think of today as practice." Yunyan froze, turning to look at him. Old Lu was driving today, and the soundproof panel inside the car wasn't raised, so he could hear their conversation. He raised his eyes, subtly glancing at Jiang Yinyan in the rearview mirror. Jiang Yinyan leaned back, appearing relaxed. Grandma has acknowledged you, so you're now a member of the Jiang family. From now on, you'll inevitably attend gatherings like these. Even if you don't want to, you'll still have to show your face once or twice a year. Yinyan simply uttered a soft, "Oh," and said nothing more. Jiang Yinyan turned to look at her, hesitating as if about to speak. After a long moment, he said, "In short, don't be nervous. There's no need to be. Just stay by my side. If you see someone you like, say a few words. If you don't, ignore them completely. No one will dare say anything to you." "Don't have to acknowledge them?" she asked, half joking. "They're all either rich or powerful. I wouldn't dare offend them." Jiang Yinyan raised an eyebrow at her remark. "You dare to offend even me, yet you're afraid of offending them?" "Yunyan, who would dare offend you?" Old Lu spoke up, chuckling. "Miss you may not know, but not all Beijing circle gatherings can invite young Master Yin. His attendance this time is a great honor for the host. The most important man in the entire venue tonight is sitting right beside Miss Yu, so Miss Yu truly has no need to be nervous or fear offending anyone." Hearing this, Yunyan felt a slight tingle in her heart. She wasn't sure what kind of feeling it was. It felt rather secure. She instinctively turned to look at Jiang Yinyan, only to see a slight smirk on his lips. The shimmering neon lights from outside the car window splashed across his brows and eyes, highlighting his handsome features and revealing the unconcealed amusement in his gaze. "This isn't right," Yunyan murmured. Jiang Yinyan turned to her. "What's not right?" "Like, when old Lu just said all that, you shouldn't have let him finish. Isn't that the classic green tea trope from TV dramas?" Jiang Yinyan chuckled. "Why shouldn't I let him speak? If he didn't say it, how would you know?" Yinyan thought to herself, "You're not green tea, you're white tea." "Know what? I don't know anything at all," Yunyan said, deliberately teasing him. It didn't annoy him. Jiang Yinyan merely said, unhurriedly, "To know that your man is someone others can't easily afford to offend." Yunyan's ears flushed red, and she turned her head to look out the window. From Jiang Yinyan's perspective, not only were her ears slightly red, but her cheeks were too. He wondered if it was due to the neon lights outside the window, but she looked as vibrant and lovely as a peach blossom. He raised a hand and ruffled her head. Old Lu, driving in front, had a slight smile playing on his lips. It seemed to be a common understanding that VIPs often made their entrance later. When Yinyan entered the club banquet hall with Jiang Yinyan, the room was already quite full. Jiang Yinyan whispered to her, "Link your arm with mine." In such an occasion, Yinyan naturally obeyed him, so she linked her arm with his as they entered the banquet hall. The moment they stepped into the banquet hall, Yunyan felt as if the previously lively atmosphere had suddenly fallen quiet. Only the diligent live band continued to play, their leisurely tunes momentarily flowing freely, making the hall seem remarkably still. But soon, someone proactively came forward to greet them. "Young Master Yin, oh, you finally arrived. I was just thinking, if you hadn't graced us with your presence tonight, I wouldn't dare show my face in the circle tomorrow." The host, judging by his enthusiastic greeting, was undoubtedly an insider of the circle. Others gradually approached, greeting Jiang Yinyan one after another. Yinyan observed everything clearly from the side. Although Jiang Yinyan himself didn't hold a position in the main group and had single-handedly, with fierce determination, carved out his own path, people in the circle were still very wary of him. This wasn't solely due to his identity as the third young master of the Jiang family, but more because of his ruthless tactics in the business world and his ever-expanding empire. While everyone spoke to Jiang Yinyan, each person still cast a glance at Yunyan. Yunyan was well aware of the gazes of those around her. Although Yunyan had never attended a Beijing circle gathering, she had attended other gatherings. Human nature was universal, and Yunyan was all too familiar with the scrutinizing, curious, or gossipy looks at such banquets. Fortunately, no one asked anything. But even though no one asked, Jiang Yinyan proactively introduced her. "This is Yunyan," he said, his tone not casual, but rather serious. Those around them clearly looked stunned. Yunyan struggled to curve her lips into a smile, thinking, this Jiang Yinyan is truly such a tease. No one asked, "So why are you introducing me?" "Afraid the world won't know." Then Jiang Yinyan calmly continued, "Remember this, and take good care of her in the future." Everyone was even more shocked to hear this, exchanging glances before hurrying to comply and greet Yunyan. Yunyan felt immensely awkward, yet within that awkwardness was a touch of warmth. Perhaps, no matter how much she thought Jiang Yinyan was being provocative, she subconsciously felt that his introduction genuinely made her feel she wasn't just an accessory. The host slapped his forehead. "I knew it. This young lady looked awfully familiar. Isn't this the Yu family's young miss, the one Grandma recognized?" He then turned to Yunyan, chuckling, "Don't be shy, you know. Our circle doesn't have too many formalities or rules. Everyone's quite relaxed usually." It's a good thing for you to come to these gatherings with little uncle and liven things up. We'll all get to know each other over time. Yunyan gave him a polite smile. Okay. But inwardly, her heart was pounding. How can I not be shy? I've seen your face in the news alone. And it wasn't just the host. Among those who had gathered around, some faces were indeed very familiar. Each one, taken individually, was a prominent figure. Furthermore, Yunyan knew perfectly well. Were these people really relaxed? They were all astute individuals. The Yu family and Jiang family had canceled their engagement, a widely publicized event that was no less sensational than Grandma recognizing a new family member. Did this person in front of her, and the others, not know about the annulment when they eagerly brought up Grandma's recognition? How could that be? Thus, these astute individuals were perfectly clear about what should and shouldn't be said. As she walked further inside with Jiang Yinyan, she vaguely heard the host quietly ask Jiang Yinyan, "Young Master Yin, should we call her little niece or little sister-in-law?" The remark wasn't very clear in her ears, as someone else was also speaking to Yunyan at the time. So for a moment, she wasn't sure if she had misheard. But Yunyan clearly heard Jiang Yinyan's next words. He said to the man, playfully scolding him, "Sister-in-law is sister-in-law. Why little sister-in-law? What are you playing at?" "Understood. My mistake, my huge mistake. What little this or that? We don't even have the big one, so where would little come from, right? I deserve a slap on the wrist." It was evident that the man had a decent relationship with Jiang Yinyan, who retorted with a laugh, "Go do what you're supposed to do. Why are you so chatty?" "Right away." However, after taking only 2 steps, the host turned back and said to Jiang Yinyan, "Please don't be in a hurry to leave before everyone has arrived." "Not everyone's here." Jiang Yinyan frowned. From the moment she entered until now, Yunyan had been twice profoundly shocked, or rather, twice utterly stunned. The first time was when Jiang Yinyan, in a half-joking, half-serious manner, emphasized the topic of little sister-in-law. Even if Yunyan hadn't fully caught it first, no matter how simply she thought, she knew what he was implying. The tremor in her heart was truly like a ship colliding with a giant reef, turbulent and restless. The second time was what the host said when he returned. The Zhan family's living king of hell, Zhan Chuan. When the Zhan family was mentioned, those in the circle were more accustomed to comparing them with the Jiang family. Although the Zhan family's roots weren't as deep as the Jiang family's, they were currently comparable to the Jiang family from a political and business standpoint. However, the two families also had vast differences. The Jiang family was indigenous, rooted north of the Yangtze River for generations, with ancestors who served as officials for generations. Through dynastic changes, they continued generation after generation, serving in court during peacetime and producing many famous figures during times of unrest. To say the family name was illustrious for the Jiang family was no exaggeration. But by Jiang Sr.'s generation, he shifted the Jiang family's focus to commerce. He himself held dual political and business identities and prioritized cultivating his children. So by Jiang Yinyan's generation, the main branch of the Jiang family established its financial empire. And the Zhan family? As a rising star, their pace in transforming family functions was slower than the Jiang families. So by Zhan Chuan's generation, some engaged in business, others in politics. Zhan Chuan favored design, art, and innovation. Jiang Wenjun once told Yunyan about Zhan Chuan's ideal. He detested bustling places and thus yearned for quiet, solitary cities. If he could stay at the ends of the earth, he wouldn't get bored no matter how long he stayed. Just give him a brush and a canvas, or let him carry a camera. Yunyan once believed Zhan Chuan would surely realize his wishes, do what he wanted, and gradually achieve his dreams. She had also asked Zhan Chuan what his ideal was. At the time, Zhan Chuan's expression was difficult to describe. After a long silence, he said bitterly, "Ideals?" Ultimately, Zhan Chuan never answered her question. It wasn't until now that Yunyan understood the source of that bitter smile. Jiang Wenjun told her, the night before Zhan Chuan returned to the country, he got completely drunk. I've known him for many years, and it was the first time I'd seen him drunk. I can understand. He clearly knew what he would face upon returning home. It was like a memorial to his ideals. Zhan Chuan was the eldest son of the Zhan family, naturally expected to act according to the wishes of the family elders. Now, those in the circle had bestowed upon him the moniker Living King of Hell, which gave an idea of the changes he'd undergone in recent years. It was evident just from his eyes. Seeing Zhan Chuan again, Yunyan felt as if she was looking at two different people. Zhan Chuan during his student days was pure and noble, like a painting slowly unfolding into a landscape imbued with sunshine and the scent of ink, wise and profound, aloof and clear. The current Zhan Chuan had a sharpness in his bones, meticulously impartial. It was said that not long after Zhan Chuan transferred to the procuratorate, he cracked a major case whose target was a distant relative of the Zhan family. confiscating nearly 100 million yuan in illicit funds. The crime was real, but Zhang Chuan's mercilessness was absolute. It was rumored that many elders from that branch of the family rushed to Beishur to plead for leniency from the Zhang family, and some even knelt before Zhang Chuan. Within the family, no matter the situation, how could a junior accept kowtowing from an elder? So Zhang Chuan also knelt before them, but his stance was firm. As a junior, I may be unfilial, but as a national law enforcement officer, I am not wrong. After that, no one dared to seek Zhang Chuan's intercession again. Zhang Chuan's entry into the procuratorate was his own decision. It was said that the Zhang family elders were not very keen, as they naturally hoped he would join the public security organs within the public security, procuratorial, and judicial systems, not wanting Zhang Chuan to make enemies. As a result, Zhang Chuan not only made enemies but offended thoroughly. Disregarding all kinship ties was the evaluation given to him by those in the circle, and over time, he earned the title of Living King of Hell. Upon hearing the host's words, Jiang Yinyan smiled. A rare visitor, indeed. Zhang Chuan was not one for pleasure, so he was rarely seen at such gatherings. Moreover, people in the circle now feared seeing him. He was like a sword hanging over people's heads, which could fall at any moment if he found leverage against them. As Jiang Yinyan spoke, he subtly glanced at Yunyan, then asked the host, "Are you that idol? Of all people, why invite him?" As they spoke, they had already been led to the lounge area. It wasn't yet time for the official start of the banquet, so the event began with a buffet of fruits, pastries, and cold dishes with champagne, red wine, and various other alcoholic beverages fully stocked. There was also a beverage section for those who didn't drink alcohol. The entire banquet hall covered a considerable area. Those who preferred quiet conversation stayed in the lounge, while those who liked activities had various venues. Outdoors, there was also a golf course, and though it was winter, the lawn was exceptionally well maintained, equipped with an intelligent turf temperature control system. After Jiang Yinyan and Yunyan sat down on a sofa, waiters quickly brought a selection of snacks and fine wines. The porcelain plates, crafted by Jingda Jun masters and themed with red persimmons, were exquisitely designed with impeccable taste. The host wasn't in a hurry to leave, and since he hadn't finished speaking, he naturally sat down beside Jiang Yinyan and muttered in a low voice, "Your Jiang family, their Zhan family, those are essential names to include on the guest list for circle gatherings. How dare I not consult with the Zhan family?" He then casually picked up an empty glass, smiled, and looked at Yunyan, asking, "Little." Jiang Yinyan shot him a look. The host suppressed a smile and changed his tone. "Miss you. What would you like to drink?" "No need. Thank you. I'll help myself," Yunyan quickly said. "That won't do. When has young master Yin ever brought a female companion? I must make sure you're well looked after," the host said with a warm smile. "Get to the point, finish, and then leave. Don't hover around me." Jiang Yinyan didn't let him offer his hospitality. He took the glass from the host's hand, poured a glass of orange juice, and then handed it to Yunyan. Yunyan took it. The orange juice was just the right temperature, not too cold to upset her stomach, nor too hot to lose its taste. The host continued about Zhang Chuan. "The living king of hell is here this time, and it's because of the Zhang family." "The Zhang family?" Jiang Yinyan raised an eyebrow slightly. The host gestured with his chin towards the diagonally opposite side. "Zhang Xianwen." Yunyan's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively looked over. Zhang Xianwen had actually come too. While everyone else was eager to speak a few words to Jiang Yinyan, he was the only one who hadn't approached. Currently, he was chatting with someone, holding a glass of wine. Yunyan could faintly see his profile. Compared to before, his arrogance had considerably toned down. Jiang Yinyan sneered, "Him? What's there to investigate?" Zhang Xianwen started a company with someone around the middle of last year, but I heard some of their methods weren't entirely above board. "Maybe that's what's being investigated," the host said briefly. He then leaned closer to Jiang Yinyan's ear and added, "We in this circle are bound to be investigated, so it's best to be careful." Jiang Yinyan scoffed. "I welcome his esteemed presence to investigate any time." Listening to their conversation, Yunyan's heart was restless for a moment, beating wildly. She knew where this fear came from. Was she afraid Jiang Yinyan would move against Zhang Chuan? Or worried Zhang Chuan would find leverage against Jiang Yinyan? After the host left, more people came to offer toasts, some not lacking in official-sounding platitudes. At first, Yunyan stayed by Jiang Yinyan's side, but gradually, people kept trying to get her to drink a few sips. Plus, Yunyan was genuinely uninterested in their conversations and feeling rather down when her gaze fell upon some familiar faces. It was Jiang Zhixing and Mora. The two had gone to play golf for a while and returned to see Jiang Yinyan, surrounded like a moon by stars. Upon seeing Yunyan, Mora happily waved vigorously at her. Jiang Zhixing entering the banquet hall was inevitably a visible target as well, being a member of the Jiang family. Moreover, The matter of him poaching his cousin's love interest had recently become widely known within the circle. So, with Jiang Ninian present tonight and Jiang Zhixing at the same event, those not closely associated with the Jiang family observed secretly, while those slightly closer were secretly nervous. Jiang Zhixing was approaching. Jiang Ninian told Yunyan, "If you're really bored, go for a walk." Yunyan eagerly rose, greeted everyone, and quickly left. When she met Jiang Zhixing, Yunyan couldn't bring herself to speak several times, finally just giving a slight nod as a greeting. Mora impatiently pulled Yunyan away. Yunyan took the opportunity to glance around the venue, but didn't see Zhan Chuan. It seemed he hadn't arrived yet, and she wondered when he would. If Zhan Chuan came, she felt a little anxious and uneasy. Mora pulled her to a quiet spot where they could see the brightly lit golf course lawn through a large glass window. Yunyan said, "Everyone else plays during the day, but you play late at night. I bet the golf is just an excuse to spend more time with Jiang Zhixing, isn't it?" Mora didn't shy away, laughing. "Isn't it natural to be curious since I've never played at night? Don't even mention how good the facilities are at this clubhouse. Look at the lighting outside. It's no worse than during the day. Oh, but it's such a waste of electricity." She added, "Jiang Zhixing and I are a done deal. So what's the difference if we spend more or less time together?" Yunyan smiled. Mora and Jiang Zhixing's matter had been resolved smoothly. "I didn't expect you to come today. If I had known, I wouldn't have been so nervous the whole way here," Yunyan said. Mora stared at her, looking her up and down. "What's wrong?" Mora said, "It's not strange at all that I came. Your presence is what truly surprised everyone." Yunyan lowered her gaze. "It is quite strange for me to attend such an event." "No, you don't understand what I mean." Mora waved her hand. "This gathering is exclusively for people from the Beijing elite circle. Outsiders can't get in. Like me, although I'm not part of the Beijing elite, I can come because Jiang Zhixing and I are getting married soon. Now look at the women in the venue." Yunyan followed her gaze. They were all basically dressed like proper wives, in modest and understated attire. Yet from the fabrics and jewelry they wore, it was clear these were no ordinary items, similar in nature to her own gown. Yunyan said, "I was accepted by the Jiang family's matriarch, so naturally I can attend this kind of occasion." "You're playing dumb, aren't you? Jiang Ninian brought you here so conspicuously. Do you think everyone here really believes you're his niece?" Mora asked with a chuckle. Yunyan subconsciously glanced in Jiang Ninian's direction. He was already surrounded by people. She suddenly remembered what old Lu had said. He truly was a man who drew all eyes. Mora looked at her profile, resting her chin on her hand in admiration. "You're so beautiful. It's only natural that you could captivate Jiang Ninian enough for him to make an exception for you." As she spoke, she raised a hand toward Yunyan's face, but the moment Yunyan turned her head, her hand dropped again. Yunyan didn't notice Mora's gesture and replied, "My relationship with him, it's just—" She didn't finish her sentence, a hint of contemplation in her words. "Just what?" Mora asked curiously. Yunyan thought of all the various things from the past, and after a long while, completed her sentence. "Let's just let nature take its course." Mora thought for a moment, then took her hand. "All right, I'm going to be honest, but please don't get angry." "Go ahead." Yunyan felt she was being quite serious. Mora said, "When we first met, I really liked you. I just felt like we had a special connection, the kind that could make us lifelong good friends. You understand what I mean, right?" "I understand." Yunyan smiled. "So, what are you ultimately trying to say?" Mora looked at her, some ardent emotion in her eyes, but it was well reined in. She said, "Actually, I hope you can marry into the Jiang family. That way, we'll be together forever." At this point, she added, "Sometimes being family makes relationships more secure." Yunyan stared at her, feeling an indescribable strangeness. After a long pause, she asked Mora, "Is something wrong?" "No." Mora, afraid she might misunderstand, gently emphasized, "I'm just speaking from the heart." Yunyan looked at her, thought for a moment, and said, "Since you hope I marry into the Jiang family, why did you instigate GZ to cause so much trouble back then?" "That was because Jiang Zid was morally bankrupt and wronged you. If you married Jiang Zid, wouldn't you be jumping into a pit of fire? The Jiang family has so many eligible young men. Any one of them would be far better than Jiang Zid, right? Besides, you didn't have any feelings for Jiang Zid at that time. If you had been deeply devoted or completely love-struck, I could have found a way to make that GZ scram." Mora had a lot to say once this topic came up, her tone strong and forceful. "That GZ, she not only harmed you, but also ruined her own future. Since she was so determined to climb up by clinging to a scoundrel, then I decided to grant her wish." Yunyan sighed, not so much out of pity for GZ, but rather feeling that when someone painstakingly schemes to get something, there will inevitably be a backlash waiting for them in the end. Take GZ, for example. She heard that GZ had completely moved out of the old mansion and was having a terrible time with Tang Hui. Tang Hui was also intent on revenge. GZ's maternal relatives who wanted to come and stay were all sent back by Tang Hui, who adamantly refused to let any of the G family in the door. A promising future, ruined by a moment's misguided ambition. It's just pitiful for that child, who will have to face an incomplete family situation from birth. But Jiang Yinyan is different. Mora changed the subject. I've known him for so many years, and I've never seen him with a girl. Even when we were engaged, our relationship was, at most, friendly. I once thought he truly wasn't interested in women, until I saw him keep you by his side. Mora, Yinyan said softly, my relationship with him is quite complicated, not something that can be explained in just a few words. Then do you want to marry him? Mora asked pointedly. Yinyan's heart fluttered. Marry? Jiang Yinyan? This was just like when she heard the word sister-in-law earlier. It made her heart race. Just as she was about to tell Mora to stop kidding around, she saw Jiang Yinyan get up and walk towards them. For some reason, Yinyan felt terribly nervous, as if she had done something wrong. Mora teased. You're not complaining that I've hogged you for too long, are you? What nonsense are you talking about? Yinyan said, a little flustered. Jiang Yinyan approached, under everyone's gaze. He smiled and asked, what are you two chatting about? His words seemed relaxed, but when he looked at Mora, there was a subtle warning in his eyes. How could Mora not understand his gaze? She smiled and deliberately said, some things are only suitable for us girls to talk about, not for men to hear. Jiang Yinyan's lips twitched slightly. He didn't say much more to Mora. He looked at Yinyan and asked, have you eaten anything? Not yet. Dinner won't be served for a while. If you're hungry, grab something to tide you over. Remember, don't eat anything cold. Jiang Yinyan instructed. Yinyan hummed in acknowledgement. I have some business to discuss with friends. Stay here and don't wander off. Also, if anyone comes to toast you, you don't need to acknowledge them. Jiang Yinyan instructed. Yinyan nodded. Seeing her so obedient, Jiang Yinyan smiled contentedly, then couldn't resist reaching out to ruffle her hair. I'll be back soon. Yinyan felt that all eyes in the room were glued to her again. After Jiang Yinyan left the banquet hall with a few people and went upstairs, Mora sighed softly. I didn't expect Jiang Yinyan to be so doting. Yinyan thought to herself, he always used to be quite doting. That's right, whether she wanted to admit it or not, one thing was true. She really had been accustomed to his care since childhood. After that, in the few years Yin was away from the Yu family, she never used a personal bodyguard again. It wasn't that she hadn't looked, but none of the ones she found ever satisfied her. She lost count of how many times she had subconsciously turned around to call out a Yin, only to find that the Yin who silently followed and cared for her was no longer there. Jiang Yinyan wasn't in the banquet hall, and sure enough, some people who couldn't approach him personally turned their attention to Yinyan. Quite a few came over with drinks, but Mora, quite assertively, rebuffed them all, restoring Yunyan's peace. But soon, Zhang Xianwen walked over, and Yunyan felt another jolt in her heart. That scoundrel Zhang Xian still dares to cozy up to you, Mora sneered. Watch me curse him to death. Yunyan, however, wanted to see what he would do. Zhang Xianwen came forward, holding a champagne flute. There was a faint scent of alcohol on him. He had been drinking earlier. He stepped forward and greeted Yunyan proactively, smiling. What an honor, to be able to invite Miss Yu to this event today. Mora subtly stood by Yunyan's side, preventing any potential physical contact from him. The feud between Zhang Xianwen and Jiang Yinyan was well known in their circle, and Yunyan was the root cause of it. Yunyan said, we don't have anything to talk about, do we? Given Zhang Xuanwen's arrogant nature, he would surely have reacted emotionally and spoken carelessly after hearing Yunyan say that. But today, Zhang Xianwen was restrained, and his smile even held a hint of awkwardness. Because of the alcohol, his cheeks were flushed red, and he didn't seem quite so annoying. He cleared his throat. I know, you're annoyed with me, and with the Yu Wanzhou incident before, you probably want to stab me twice. I admit it, I was a scoundrel, and I apologize to you. Yunyan slightly raised an eyebrow and exchanged a look with Mora. The sun had risen in the west. Zhang Xianwen was apologizing to her, and, at this kind of event, no need for apologies. The damage has already been done. Yunyan's emotions were stable, and then she asked him pointedly, you're looking for me. Is there something you need? She didn't think Zhang Xianwen would still have the audacity to provoke her now. Sure enough, Zhang Xianwen nodded, appearing somewhat hesitant when he spoke his next words. I suppose you've heard that the Zhan family is investigating me? Yunyan was startled. It was truly a coincidence that she had just heard about it. If she hadn't come to the banquet, she really would have been completely unaware. I don't even need to interact much with anyone here to know they're all talking about me. After all, how could Zhan Chuan, that living king of hell, have the leisure to attend a party? Zhang Xianwen sneered. So what if I know? Yunyan didn't understand. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xianwen dropped his sneer and switched to a pleading tone. I know I wronged you in Yuan Zhou, but today I'm just going to be shameless. I want to ask for your help. Please intercede with Zhang Chuan for me. Ask him to go easy on me, just this once. It's really just a minor issue, I swear. Yun Yan looked at him in astonishment. Zhang Xianwen, you want me to plead for you? With Zhang Chuan, Zhang Xianwen looked quite embarrassed, giving a slight nod. Yun Yan felt she had truly seen it all. No, why would I intercede for you? And why would Zhang Chuan owe me any favors? Zhang Xianwen, are you drunk and starting to get carried away? You really dare to think that? Mora also wanted to laugh upon hearing this. Zhang Xianwen, your request to Yun Yan is completely absurd. Not only did you offend Yun Yan before, so she wouldn't help you at all, but even if she could help, why would she? Zhang Chuan represents the procuratorate. If they're investigating you, it means you've knowingly broken the law. How do you expect Yun Yan to help? Bear your crimes for you? Why should she do you this favor? Indeed, it's quite absurd for me to ask you for this, but I'm truly out of options. Zhang Chuan is completely unyielding, and he doesn't socialize much with people in the circle. Aren't you? Zhang Xianwen lowered his voice. Aren't you from the same school as Zhang Chuan? He's your senior. Surely he'd give you some consideration, right? Yun Yan stared at Zhang Xianwen, sighing inwardly at his resourcefulness, that he could even connect this. After a long while, she said, Zhang Chuan is indeed my senior, but our relationship is just average, so he wouldn't do me any favors. Besides, Zhang Xianwen, you've broken the law. I can't help you. As she spoke, she saw a stir of movement in the banquet hall, as if someone had arrived. Yun Yan looked intently and saw that Zhang Chuan had arrived. Her heart trembled. The banquet hall doors were wide open, and a swathe of brilliant light streamed in from the corridor, as if paving a golden path. Zhang Chuan's figure was stretched long, appearing exceptionally stern. But the sternness wasn't caused by the light, but by his attire. He wasn't in a suit and tie. He was dressed in a uniform, with another person, presumably his subordinate, following behind him. In his uniform, he was imposing, his gaze authoritative, upright, and impossible to ignore. Zhang Chuan in his uniform was different again from last time. He no longer had his previous gentleness. His handsome face was calm, but it was this very calmness that made one's skin crawl and sent shivers down one's spine. No wonder he was called the living king of hell. The host of the banquet had been waiting for Zhang Chuan. Seeing him arrive, but in uniform, his heart immediately sank. Around them, whispers also broke out. The host hurriedly stepped forward, but before he could even speak, he heard Zhang Chuan say, I apologize for disturbing the event. I was supposed to attend the banquet properly today, but a temporary assignment came up, so I could only come like this. A person capable of organizing this banquet and chatting and laughing easily with someone like Jiang Yinyan naturally held significant sway in this circle. The fact that everyone came indicated the host's considerable influence. But clearly, he was respectful and courteous towards Zhang Chuan. This was easy to understand. First, it was Zhang Chuan's first time at such a gathering. Second, appearing in uniform, no matter how one looked at it, carried the suspicion of disrupting the event. Even if he came directly from his unit, just his uniform standing in the banquet hall would make anyone feel strange approaching him. But the host, adept at social graces, still said his courtesies, repeatedly expressing welcome. Just coming is doing us a great honor. What wine do you prefer? I'll have someone. No need to entertain me. I'm here with an assignment this time. Zhang Chuan interrupted him. He headed straight for Yun Yan. Although Yun Yan's spot was relatively quiet, it was still in the banquet hall, so she couldn't miss this scene. Seeing Zhang Chuan approach, her right eyelid twitched. Right eye twitching, a sign of misfortune. The closer Zhang Chuan got, the more restless Zhang Xianwen became. He simply turned his head, not looking at Zhang Chuan, but only at Yun Yan, his eyes pleading for help. This made Yun Yan even more agitated. It shouldn't be to greet her, but if it was for Zhang Xianwen, it shouldn't be so publicly. Before the thought had even fully formed, Zhang Chuan had already arrived at their table. His broad shoulders and sharp, well-fitting uniform blocked a significant number of curious gazes. His eyes first fell on Yun Yan's face, nodding slightly in acknowledgement, his reserved and deep gaze making people nervous. Yun Yan's mouth opened, almost blurting out, Hello, Prosecutor Zhang, but she swallowed it back, nodding in response. He was coming directly for Zhang Xianwen, without any delay. Zhang Chuan subtly turned his head to glance at his subordinate. The person accompanying him flashed a badge and a notice, saying, Zhang Xianwen, after investigation, you are suspected of involvement in an economic corruption case. Please come with us to cooperate with the investigation. It was said clearly and directly. Zhang Xianwen stared at Zhang Chuan incredulously, lowering his voice slightly and gritting his teeth. Zhang Chuan, you can't be serious, can you? You're taking me away right here? In front of so many people. This was perhaps something no one had expected, including Zhang Xianwen himself. Everyone knew Zhang Chuan was investigating Zhang Xianwen, and guessed Zhang Chuan's presence today was also related to the case. But they thought at most he would publicly maintain polite appearances while secretly investigating or gathering evidence. Who would have thought it would come to this? A direct entry to make an arrest. Suddenly, the whole room was in an uproar. For the procuratorate to directly come for an arrest usually meant the evidence was conclusive 9 times out of 10. Connecting this with Zhang Chuan's earlier words, everything now made sense. The preliminary inference was that Zhang Chuan had initially intended to attend the banquet with the purpose of contacting Zhang Xianwen, but before leaving he had already obtained concrete evidence, and the arrest procedures were complete. He then decided to go all the way and directly came to take the person away. This was indeed a huge blow to Zhang Xianwen. Zhang Chuan remained calm, not even wasting more words on Zhang Xianwen, saying, "Since you all feel it's inappropriate, then come with us as soon as possible." Zhang Xianwen was furious. Perhaps it was the alcohol, or perhaps the humiliation of losing face in front of so many people. But Zhang Xuanwen's temper flared up. He snapped at Zhang Chuan. "Who the hell do you think you are, daring to take me away? I'm not going with you. What are you going to do about it? If you got the guts, just shoot me right here." At that shout, the surroundings fell silent. Zhang Chuan's expression remained impassive, and his subordinate coldly ordered, "Zhang Xianwen, we are currently only taking you back for questioning. You'd best cooperate." "I'm not cooperating, damn it. You two think you can take me away? Puffed. You really think there's no one in the Zhang family, do you? Forget a city procuratorate. Even if the Supreme People's Procuratorate came, I wouldn't be afraid." Mora subtly nudged Yunyan, lowering her voice. "Let's leave here first. Don't get involved in this." Yunyan had no intention of getting involved. Not only did she have no close ties with Zhang Xianwen, but given the current situation, anyone with eyes could see Zhang Xianwen had committed a crime. Why did she have to intercede for him? She nodded slightly, pulling Mora's hand, and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xianwen saw them. Perhaps driven by a surge of alcohol or a burst of reckless courage, he lunged forward and grabbed Yunyan's wrist, startling her. Mora coldly ordered, "What are you doing? Let go." Zhang Xuanwen's attitude towards Yunyan instantly changed, completely different from his previous thuggish behavior. Almost pleading, "Yunyan, I miss you. I beg you to put in a good word for me. I'll promise you anything you want. Let go." Zhang Chuan's cold shout rang out. He took a long stride forward and roughly pulled Zhang Xianwen, his face as cold as frost. Zhang Xianwen, for some reason, saw Yunyan as his last straw, and no matter how Zhang Chuan pulled, he wouldn't let go. Yunyan felt like her wrist was about to break. Zhang Xuanwen's grip was too strong. Mora raised her hand to hit Zhang Xianwen, shouting, "You're hurting her, let go." Seeing this, people around them started to approach, trying to intervene. Zhang Xianwen, with the alcohol getting to his head, instantly became completely irrational. His eyes turned red like a cornered, maddened bull. He let go of Yunyan's hand, but then violently pushed the table, sending it crashing towards the champagne tower. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The entire champagne tower collapsed, and the host, for the sake of aesthetics, had deliberately made the champagne tower quite tall. Yunyan watched with wide eyes as the mountain-like champagne tower came crashing down towards her. The next second, everything went dark. Then she felt herself shielded in someone's arms, and as they both fell, she heard a crashing sound, followed by the shattering of glass. Yunyan was completely enveloped, thoroughly protected. Gasps continued around them. She could also hear someone shouting in alarm, "Prosecutor Zhan." Yunyan focused her eyes and saw that it was Zhang Chuan who had protected her. Just as the champagne tower fell, Zhang Chuan shielded her with his body. Champagne and broken glass rained down on him, sliding down his cheek and dripping from his prominent Adam's apple. Yunyan was startled. She hadn't expected Zhang Chuan to do that. On the other side, Zhang Xianwen was truly mad. He grabbed a sharp piece of broken glass and rushed at Zhang Chuan. "I'll kill you." Everything happened too quickly. Zhang Xianwen was closest to Zhang Chuan, and before anyone could stop him, he plunged the sharp object into Zhang Chuan's back. Yunyan gasped, instinctively wanting to reach out to block him, but Zhang Chuan pressed down on her wrist. The next second, Zhang Xianwen was pulled away by the people who had rushed forward. "Prosecutor Zhan." His subordinate rushed over. Yunyan looked up at Zhang Chuan in horror. His brows were slightly furrowed, sweat beaded on his forehead, but he looked down at her and asked, "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Yunyan quickly supported him. "Get up quickly, let's check the wound." Zhang Chuan was soon helped up. The surroundings were in chaos. The host hurriedly called waiters to clean up and, at the same time, called a long-term collaborating doctor. Zhang Chuan said he didn't need medical attention, as he still had a task. His subordinate said, "I'll take the person back, Prosecutor Zhan. Your injury could be serious or minor. You should deal with the wound first. Zhang Chuan was about to refuse, but seeing the scratches on Yunyan's wrist, he agreed to let the doctor come and ordered his subordinates to take the person away as soon as possible. After this incident, Zhang Xianwen seemed to have sobered up, completely lost his composure for a moment, unable even to speak, allowing himself to be forcibly escorted away. The host quickly arranged a lounge, and the doctor came directly to the lounge. Yunyan's wrist had just been scratched by Zhang Xianwen. It was nothing serious and only needed a simple cleaning. When the champagne tower fell, Zhang Chuan protected Yunyan while also pushing Mora away. So she wasn't injured, but her clothes got dirty, and she had to go to the changing room to wait for a new dress to be delivered. Although Zhang Chuan's wound wasn't deep, it was still pierced by a sharp object. When the doctor took off his shirt, Yunyan also saw the wound on his upper back. Fortunately, no vital organs were hit. She was quite surprised. How could a piece of broken glass pierce a uniform? The doctor said, "I took a look before I came." The object wasn't ordinary broken glass. It was a crystal support from next to the champagne tower, which is quite hard and sharp. Coupled with the perpetrator's strong grip, it was like a focused, powerful blow. Because it was a venue that frequently hosted events in the circle, it was well equipped with various facilities, including a dedicated first aid medical area. Although it wasn't a hospital, handling minor injuries and ailments was no problem. Zhang Chuan's wound was stitched, not many, just 2 stitches. Yunyan stood by during the stitching, not leaving. Seeing his shirt stained with blood, she felt incredibly guilty. If not for protecting her, he might not have been injured. But even without the injury, being hit by the champagne tower like that had made her deeply unsettled. She asked the doctor, "Is his head okay?" She hoped he didn't get a concussion or anything. He had entered the lounge with glass shards on his head. His head was rinsed immediately, and the doctor checked for external injuries, but she was afraid of internal injuries. Zhang Chuan gently said, "I'm not that delicate. How are you? Were you scared?" He then looked her up and down. "Your clothes are fine, not dirty." Yunyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry hearing this. At a time like this, he was still worried about clothes getting dirty. The doctor was quick and efficient. After finishing the 2 stitches, he told Zhang Chuan, "I don't see anything serious, but if you're worried, you can go to the hospital for another checkup." Zhang Chuan said no need. It was just a minor injury, nothing life-threatening, but he was still worried about Yunyan's condition, so he asked the doctor to check her again. He remembered she seemed to have bumped herself when they fell, and although he had protected her head in time, what if? Yunyan quickly said there was no need. The doctor smiled and said, "Your boyfriend is worried about you. Don't refuse." Yunyan froze. Zhang Chuan's lips curved slightly, and he gently instructed the doctor, "Please be careful and thorough." The doctor smiled and repeatedly said okay, then examined her, telling Zhang Chuan, "Don't worry, your girlfriend is fine, just that little scratch on her wrist." Yunyan's previously stiff brain suddenly started working again, and she immediately explained, "When not a couple." "All right." Her voice and Zhang Chuan's rose simultaneously. When only the 2 of them were left in the room, Yunyan felt quite awkward. She said softly, "I'm really sorry." Zhang Chuan smiled, a complete contrast to his solemn and stern demeanor in the banquet hall just moments ago. "You said sorry so many times, Yunyan. Do I make you feel that distant?" "No, I understand what you mean," Zhang Chuan said softly. "But that was a subconscious reaction. I would have done the same for anyone else by my side, so you don't need to feel guilty." Yunyan nodded slightly. She didn't want to owe him a favor. "Although the wound has been treated, I still recommend you go to the hospital for a checkup, and remember to change the dressing." She gave a couple of instructions, but in truth, she wanted to leave as soon as possible. After all, it was a banquet, and everyone had seen what happened. Although Jiang Yunyan had just left the banquet hall with some people, she believed the news would reach him very quickly. Zhang Chuan said, "All right." Just as Yunyan was about to leave, Zhang Chuan called out to her again. "Zhang Xianwen wants you to intercede for him." Zhang Chuan stood up. He was tall, and his standing made Yunyan appear petite. Furthermore, he still hadn't put on his shirt. His shoulder was wrapped in gauze, and his upper body was muscular and well-defined, exuding masculinity. Yunyan averted her gaze. "Yes, he implied that. I heard he previously made things difficult for Wanzhou," Zhang Chuan said, picking up the bloodstained shirt nearby. Yunyan nodded. "So what was he thinking?" Zhang Chuan asked with a hint of sarcasm, then added, "Zhang Xuanwen's involvement in this case is neither big nor small. Before, without real power or leverage, they couldn't touch him. This time, he's just unlucky to be caught." Yunyan let out a small "oh," then realized and asked him, "So, did Zhang Xianwen actually?" She stopped asking mid-sentence. He must have committed a crime. Otherwise, how would the procuratorate have leverage over him? However, Yunyan didn't believe Zhang Chuan had no personal motives in this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked that question just now. Seeing her stop mid-question, Zhang Chuan knew she had figured out. He smiled and dropped the topic. "About Wanzhou." Ajo refused. Yunyin gently interrupted him. These matters depend on his personal wishes. The Zhan family genuinely holds no affection for him, and the past hurt is still there. I know, Zhan Chuan said, pulling on his shirt and wincing slightly as it tugged at his wound. But this situation is special. He has no choice. You guys, Yunyin. A faint voice, accompanied by the sound of the door opening, rang out. Yunyin's scalp tightened abruptly, and she turned her head instinctively. It was Jiang Yinyin, with the host following behind him. His expression was not good, especially seeing Zhan Chuan disheveled. The host quickly stepped forward to express concern. How are you? Is the wound serious? I never expected such a thing to happen. I'm truly sorry. Zhan Chuan said calmly. I should be the one to apologize for disrupting this banquet. No worries, no worries. We're essentially cooperating with law enforcement agencies, the host said, trying to be brave. Jiang Yinyin slowly stepped forward. Zhan Chuan looked at him, his gaze seemingly calm, yet profound and unfathomable. After Jiang Yinyin stopped in front of him, he reached out, effortlessly pulling Yunyin to his side, and asked with a half-smile, Injured? It's nothing, Yunyin said uneasily. My wrist was just scratched red. Jiang Yinyin had no qualms, lifting Yunyin's wrist to examine it right in front of Zhan Chuan and the host. The scratch marks and red streaks were quite clear. His narrow eyes darkened, and his thumb gently caressed a wrist, but he said nothing.